Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who today is going to finally be reviewing an album by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards. The album is called KG. A lot of people, whenever I post a review of a rock album, they say I should listen to them, and so I've been meaning to. You know, I didn't pay attention to music between 2002 and 2018, and in that time, a lot of great rock and roll bands showed up. And a lot of times in the comments, people tell me you have to listen to them. But I have to wait for their album to come out for me to review it, for it to be new music. So I'm very excited to review this album. They did come out with a live album last year, but I don't want to be introduced to a band by a live album. I don't like doing that. And I'm happy to say this is quite a discovery. This album, KG, I am obviously not a super fan. If you are a super fan of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards, please tell me, is this a typical album? Is this the kind of quality that I should be accustomed to with them? Because this album is absolutely enjoyable. And it's one of the rare albums where it totally fit my life. So the way that I review, I used to just listen once. I don't listen just once anymore. I listen to an album several times, and I actually just sort of live with an album for a couple days. So I listen to it everywhere I go. I listen to it while I grade with headphones. I listen to it while I drive the family around in the car. I listen to it when I'm cooking dinner with my wife, right? Like all these kinds of things, and it's just a part of my life. And this album fit really well. It's an album which the musicianship is so good. The things that they're doing are so interesting in terms of what they're playing and how they're playing it, that listening to it with headphones very carefully is totally works very well. But also, it fills up a house or fills up a car very nicely. It has a very consistent atmosphere and ambiance all the way through the album, and it's something which you can have on repeat. And the whole album sounds in the same kind of area. It's loud. It's not easy listening. But it's very good listening all the way throughout. And sort of most importantly, the whole family ended up liking it. Now my daughter, I think, primarily likes it because of the name, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. She just thought that was really funny. I almost was going to do a stunt. It is Thanksgiving today. And I was going to eat a duck gizzard on camera. But I thought that would just be gross. So just imagine that I did that and put in the comments, "Oh my God, Skye, I can't believe you ate a gizzard on YouTube." It's probably good I didn't. But so she thought the name was great. But what was interesting was I ended up being in this sort of like complicated discussion or semi-argument with my wife and my son. And that's because this album, what makes it, I think, so great is that it's a very solid rock and roll album played by a rock and roll band, and you get the sense they play very well together. They probably actually like each other. I don't know how you'd know that, but just the way they play together. At times it feels almost like a jam band album. At times it almost feels like a prog-rock album, but it never falls into the annoying excesses of either of those two camps, right? Like I can't listen to a jam band album all the way through. I can't listen to a prog-rock album all the way through. It has to be something, those influences, that kind of pure genre, for me, has to be neutered a little bit, has to be watered down. And so this is in neither of those camps. But, it's that kind of rock and roll, but it's all tinged with a sort of non-Western influence. Now, I'm using that term kind of broadly. I don't really like using that term, but what I mean is there's like microtonal work. So there's like a Western scale as the 12 notes, and microtones are the things that fit in between that. There's a lot of sort of resolving notes and single note guitars. I think they're playing ouds and sitars and all kinds of like non-standard guitars on this. And there's lots of interesting rhythms as well. So that when you hear it, even though this group is from Australia, you think, are they trying to make like, and then there's like a blank, and then music. So I heard it, and the way the guitar is being played, the guitar is just excellent, by the way, just wonderful guitar on this album. It reminded me of Nasariwan, the Moroccan group who plays kind of trancey, long-form, jammy songs, singing in Arabic, that I happen to really like very much. But then my wife hears it and goes, no, this is like exactly like Macedonian music. Like if I could, and she found up on her phone, she drew up a song that sounded just like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. She's like, this rhythm, this odd meter, and the scales that are being played, but especially this rhythm and this melody, this is absolutely Macedonian music. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I mean, Macedonian music, you know, that's kind of Turkish at its origin, right? So yeah, we're all kind of in the same kind of African, sort of Arabic world. And then my son's like, no, 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 this is like Tuareg music. Okay, Tuareg, the people who don't really have a state, who live mostly in Mali, and who make a lot of great music. And I'm like, okay, I hear the Malian thing. And then he's going on, we're having this like three-way discussion about like, where's this music actually trying to take its influence from? And I think that's the strength of it. I don't think that King Gizzard is a culture vulture. I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't think that they're trying to do something where they're trying to do something kind of exotic and different. And ooh, what if we're a British band, but what if we put tablas in our music and sitars? Ooh, right? It's not that weird kind of colonial, pretentious attitude towards non-Western music. It truly feels like this suits their artistic expression. Like these sounds and these rhythms are not trying to put you in another place. They're just trying to be whatever this band is trying to make. And again, if you are a King Gizzard fan, is this what they always do? Is this like always their style? Because it was way more avant-garde than I thought it would be. Because it's very rare to hear music that is influenced by non-Western sources where that's not the point of the music. It's part of the fabric of it. And it's really excellent. And you can listen to it anywhere, and it's just great for the whole family, like I say. That's not going to be my review, by the way. Great for the whole family. This sweater, by the way, I'm wearing this because last year I watched the movie Knives Out, and this is the sweater that Chris Evans wore. So happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. So the album is really laid out very clearly. And like I said, you could almost accuse it of being too repetitive. But I wouldn't, because it has that kind of trance-like feeling at times, where yes, certain songs repeat melodies from previous songs, right? But it feels very intentional. Everything feels woven together. And a lot of the guitar work and a lot of the kind of lead melodies are all just these slightly off single string plucked notes that just eventually lead back to resolution, but take a long time to get there and take a lot of unexpected notes to get there. And so the first two tracks of the album announce the soundscape immediately. Like they just sort of lay out the template and say, this is where you're going to live for this entire album. There's a couple of exceptions later in the album which break it up beautifully, but in general, it starts in one place, and when the album starts over again, it feels as though you could be listening to the middle. The first track is called KGLW, I suppose that's their initials, which announces the soundscape, the rhythms, the instrumentations, the melodies, and then that leads directly into a track called Automation. And Automation is a lot harder, it's awesome, there's lyrics in this one, and the whole thing has a very timeless feel. I feel like any of it could be recorded in the 70s. Again, if this was sung in a different language, and it was my wife telling me, this is some Macedonian music, I'd be like, cool. Like it has that great feeling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you some of it. I'm going to play you just a little bit of this song. I could have picked basically any song to play for you, but this is the one I chose, Automation. I will say that the lyrics are kind of lost, and in general on the album, the lyrics are a little bit behind the music. I don't think that the lyrics are saying very much, but I also don't think they're saying nothing either. They're kind of in the middle. They're not love songs, they're not poetic, they're, thank God, not psychedelic gobbledygook, which is what I sort of was expecting. I was expecting it to be all, psychedelic and take a trip through your mind stuff just based on their name, which it wasn't. But it's just sort of analytical. It's sort of like looking at the world and making a comment about, we're just automated now, man. This is the way life is. And I think it's fine. I think the lyrics are fine. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're intrusively bad either. I kind of go back to the whole, jam band and prog rock poles that this band manages to stay away from. And in a way, this reminds me of sort of prog rock lyrics, which often have this sort of, let me tell you about the world, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you a truth about myself or about human existence, but I will tell you truths about the world as they exist. I don't particularly go for that kind of lyric writing. I don't find that's not my favorite kind. But in this case, I don't think that you're really listening to this for the lyrics. I think you're listening to it for the musicianship and for the atmosphere it's able to create. So I'm just going to take just 10 random seconds, 1 minute 18 to 2 minutes to 1 minute 28, and we're just going to listen to it. And I want you to listen, especially. I mean, you can't really hear it because the drumming is so good and he's doing so many interesting things. And the layers that you hear and the different channels everything's in and just the production. But this will give you a sense of the kind of world that we're living in this very, very solid album. So I think you heard that, it's driving, it's pounding, it's got the unexpected kind of non-Western sounding guitar work, and then later he goes on and he sings about automations of life. Okay, Minimum Brain Size is the next track, which again feels barely different, but the vocals are a little bit cleaner, a little bit sweeter. These lyrics are about the being rich and boring, which is a good example of the kind of thing, just like, I don't know, let's sing about boring people. They do use the Australian term bickies for money, which I didn't know that existed, so I'm happy. Because what the world needs is more expressions for money. Just an amazing instrumental break here. This has been a great week for instrumental breaks. I reviewed the Witches last week, and they had great instrumental breaks. This band has much more lush, much more produced, like more instruments going on here. They're not doing all the same thing, but it has that same feeling of just like, thank God, I don't care how much the computers are taking over the world and techno and EDM and slash this and slash that. There's still people out there who can really play their instruments, and the bass player is working really hard and the guitar is doing all these interesting drony things. The third track, Straws in the Wind, the lyrics become the most clear, and this is a great breakup for the album because you needed something because the first three tracks sounded so similar. So this fourth one, the third song with words, still has the African guitar style, very delicate, well played, but the voices are much more clearly. It's all about being straws in the wind. A really cool guitar solo on here. I almost, I'm not going to do it, but I would like to see somebody do a deep dive into this guitar solo because it's a very simple guitar solo that I think anyone could play, but it just hits these sort of unexpected notes. And I guess that's that non-Western Macedonian Tuareg Moroccan influence there. But it's just this beautiful guitar solo that just hits these notes that you just don't expect. And it's not that it's blistering or, it's none of that, but it's very tasteful and very, very good. I really suggest you listen to that, which again leads into the next song really nicely. And I'm saying they're sort of between the prog rock and jam band poles. The fact that the whole album just blends into the next song really is part of that. It has that feeling that you have when you're listening to jam band music, but this is just more interesting than a lot of jam bands are. So the track's called Some of Us, and the notes that are sung are sort of echoed by the voice, very kind of uncomfortable and awesome. There's this great little distorted guitar bit at the end of each verse, and the drummer is just working really hard and doing lots of great things. It's another album where if you're a drummer like me, you hear it and you just go, damn, that is some tasteful, good drumming. This seems to be a song about historical memory. So again, like this very sort of distant lyrical approach. Some of us die, everything turns into dust. Okay, but what's nice about this is musically, there's like a sort of like a break. And then it becomes sort of like a disco version of the same melody. Like the sort of disco organ starts playing, and it's like the announcing of the next part of the album. And it's cool because as this motif, as this same kind of melody gets playing, it's going to be basically repeated in the next song. But the next song is basically just a dance jam. It's almost the same as the previous one, but it's just way more upbeat, and it's just a dancey version. As opposed to sort of, you know what it is? This album does something very well, and I think this is something that is done very well in North African music as well, of going between trance and dance. So like Some of Us, like you're just sort of like this, and then you hear Ontology, the next track, and you just kind of want to, you want to dance. And it's amazing that they're able to do that. They also have a gong in the middle of the song, which anytime a band can use a gong is good, because then, when they go on tour, the drummer's got to bring the gong, and they're only going to hit it once or twice. But it's like that, it's like the guy in the Kung Fu movie who like has his arms folded and doesn't do anything, and then when he does something, it's amazing. Like, that's what a gong is. It's awesome to have a gong in here somewhere. Again, the lyrics, I don't know how important they are. Ontology is the study of existence, which is an interesting idea, but I don't think it particularly matters. But it's just, this little suite of songs is beautiful. So we got Some of Us, which starts off in the trance mode, becomes a dance mode, goes to Ontology, a full kind of dance song, and then we get to Intrasport, which is totally off the wall, out of nowhere on this album. I don't know where this came from, because it becomes it's like a 90s house track. Like, it even has kind of like these synth hits. Like, reminds you of like the synth hits like from Vogue. Dun, 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 that kind of thing. And it's still very Middle Eastern, right? Like, it sounds like a song that you might have heard in a Middle Eastern restaurant or something, right? Like, it kind of has that atmosphere, but then it's also kind of EDM, and it's also kind of rock and roll, and it's just an astoundingly good song, and it's a surprisingly ambitious song for doing so much all at the same time, for being all those things at once. And there's a cool thing, because there's a point where a drum machine is playing, and that seems to be the main drumming happening. But then the drummer comes in after that and starts to play along and starts to do his own thing. And this drummer is just never getting a break. He is just working so hard all the way through. I guess Intrasport, the lyrics are about like being the hunter and the prey. That's fine. And this goes directly into the next song. So a great suite of music, Odd Life, which is the most pulsing song, kind of like a chasing, pounding song. And this is all about the life on the road, and how crazy is it being a rock and roll star? I wake up in a different motel every day, I do, which is all right, that's fine. I mean, that's sort of a trope of rock and roll music from the 70s, really, but this is just great to listen to. Just the hi-hat work by the drummer is astounding. Then we go to Honey. And the song Honey is interesting because it's sort of the simplest and the clearest lyrics on the album. Sorry, my computer's making a lot of noises, but I am going to be playing you something. It's telling me that today is Thanksgiving, which amazingly enough, I already know. So this song Honey, it has like a really cool drum beat that's sort of like a 1-2 drum beat, like 1-2, 1-2. But it actually inverts itself and becomes a 2-1, 2-1 with the rest of the music. That's kind of going on. The vocals are very clear. This also includes a bass solo. It's nice to hear the bass player get some. The lyrics are just kind of like, it's like honey. It seems to be about how life is nice. And then there's this beautiful jam with like a flute and a bass and a harmonica, and everything comes together. This is the one reason I don't like this album. So my ex-wife has a very specific ringtone because, usually if she texts me, it's either because I need to know something or it's usually something that might cause me stress. I'm not going to do like a stand-up comedian thing that, oh, my ex-wife. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that usually I have to do something, right, if I get a text from her. And this is the sound of her ringtone. But no. Okay, it's like I hear that, and my sort of like nervous system, or like I get a shot of adrenaline. I'm like, okay, I have to figure out where to get the kids somewhere. I need to figure out how to organize something. I forgot a doctor's appointment. She forgot a doctor's appointment. It doesn't really matter. It's hard being divorced. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that that's how this whole flute jam begins. So that's my only problem. And I don't know, sometimes that happens in music where a weird sound associates something. So every time this jam starts, I like check my phone. I'm like, oh, right. I just got Lizard Wizard. But it's just a beautiful jam at the end, too, with the voice matching the sound of the guitar. This is where the vocalist comes out to play. He really is a very solid vocalist, and he's got a lot of great range. He's doing a lot of interesting things. The album ends a little bit on a sour note for me. It's the worst track on the album. It's not a bad track. It's called The Hungry Wolf of Fate. Heading into that prog-rock lyric territory. The Hungry Wolf of Fate. Kind of a Black Sabbath sounding song. It's a riff, but it's kind of a lazy riff. kind of like metalish as opposed to this other weird hybrid rock and roll thing they're going here. It kind of takes them away from where the album has been. I suspect that this is because this is a band which plays a lot with different genres and does a lot of different things. I suspect this is sort of like an announcement to their fans that maybe they're going in that direction next. I don't know. I'm sure they would do an album that is great, that is all the Hungry Wolf of Fate, but I was really enjoying this, just living in this little KG world for now. So there you go. There's my review of the album. I really enjoyed it. Please do tell me if you are, what do you call yourself if you're a big Lizard Wizard fan? And also, not for nothing, but, no, actually that was a stupid point. I was going to make a stupid point, but I'm not going to make it. I've made enough stupid points. Okay, well, if you'd like to see me eat a gizzard, see, this is why I need a Patreon. If I had a Patreon, you could watch a video of me eating gizzards. I don't think that sounds like it. Is that how you make money on YouTube? I don't think so. All right, well, until next time, enjoy this Thursday for whatever reason you'd enjoy it, and there's the camera.